Hey guys, I'm Taufik. In this video, I'm going to talk about the step-by-step guide that you can follow in order to get your very first job as data analyst. Now, whether you're a fresher, that is someone who has just finished your college and you're looking for your very first job, or let's say if you're someone who has already worked for a few years on some other field and you're now trying to move into the data analyst field, now the information that I'm going to be providing in this video is going to be applicable to you both. Now I'm going to split this video into 4 different sections. In the very first section, I'm going to talk about the skills that you need to become a data analyst. In the second section, we'll be talking about portfolio projects. We'll see why do you need portfolio projects and what sort of projects you should be building in order to get your very first job as data analyst. In the third section, we'll talk about a couple of courses that can help you to get your data analyst job. And in the final section, we'll see how you can make your profile more visible to the potential recruiters. Okay, so before we get into the first section, that is the skills that you need to become a data analyst, you first need to understand what actually a data analyst does. Now, in the most simplest of terms, a data analyst should be capable of extracting the data, analyzing and cleaning the data, and then drawing meaningful insights from that data. So basically, all the skills that you need are revolving around the activities that I just mentioned now. Okay, now with this understanding, let's see what are the skills that a data analyst needs. Okay, so there are 4 skills that a data analyst is expected to have. Number 1 is a BI tool or data visualization tool. Now Tableau and Power BI are the most popular BI and data visualization tool. Now there are several other tools as well, but Tableau and Power BI are the most widely used. And if you look for a data analyst job, most of the jobs would either have Tableau or Power BI as one of their requirements. Now you don't need to know both of these tools, but at least knowing any one of these tools is going to really help you to find your data analyst job. Now you might ask, for a data analyst, why is it required to know BI tool or data visualization tool? And the simple answer for that is, as a data analyst, you are expected to draw some meaningful insights from the data that you have analyzed. And you are expected to showcase these insights to the stakeholders. Now, when you want to showcase your insights or everything that you have analyzed and you're trying to solve to the stakeholders, you cannot showcase this data in the form of some table and rows, right? You cannot show it like an Excel file or some database table. You need to show it in a more visual way so that anyone can easily understand that and anyone will be able to understand what you're trying to actually show. And that is why drawing some beautiful dashboards and doing some beautiful visualization using your data is a best way to showcase this data to the stakeholders, and that is why you need to know BI tools, either Tableau or Power BI. Okay, so now you know that a data analyst requires to know BI tool, but then how do you learn it? Now, there are several free courses that you can find on YouTube. There are several tutorials covering for Power BI as well as for Tableau. And you can also find several paid courses on Coursera, Udemy, and there are so many other platforms where you can find some courses on Tableau and Power BI. But in my opinion, if you want to learn Tableau, the best way to learn Tableau is to just do the Tableau certification. And the certification that I would recommend is the Tableau Desktop Specialist certification. Now, this certification has a lifetime validity. So you do it once and it's going to be valid for life. Now, there is a new Tableau certification for data analysts that has just been introduced, and that is a Tableau certified data analyst. But the one thing that I don't like about this certification is that this certification is valid only for 2 years. So after 2 years, the certification will be expired and you will need to retake the exam to renew your certification. So that's the only problem that I see with that. Now, I truly believe that if you want to learn Tableau, the best way of learning Tableau is just by doing the Tableau Desktop Specialist certification. This, I think, is one of the most basic certification, but it will cover everything that you need to know in order to use Tableau in your work and project. And also, this certification is provided by the Tableau company itself, so you can be rest assured that the quality is actually pretty good. Now, if you want to learn Power BI, then again, I would recommend that you do a certification that is provided by Microsoft. Now, Power BI is owned by Microsoft, so it's better to do a certificate that is provided by the company itself. Now, the certificate that I'm referring to is the Microsoft Certified Data Analyst Associate. Now, this is a certificate which is specifically designed for data analysts if you want to become a data analyst, and most of the things are covered using Power BI. So I think it's a pretty good certificate. You'll get to learn Power BI and a lot of other things that you need to become a data analyst. Okay, so now you know that you need to know BI tools. So what next? The next skill that you need to gain is a spreadsheet tool, either Microsoft Excel or Google Spreadsheet. Now there are several other spreadsheet tools as well, but the most popular spreadsheet tools are either Microsoft Excel or Google Spreadsheet. Now I can guarantee you that no matter which company you go, they will be using a spreadsheet tool, especially for a data analyst role, because a lot of times you will need to analyze some small set of data, or just you might get the data in the form of an Excel file. So you should know how to use an Excel file, and Excel is pretty easy. To be frank, I think within a few days or maximum of 1 week, you can actually get pretty comfortable with Excel. Now in Excel, there are a lot of advanced concepts as well, and I would not recommend that you learn all the advanced concepts. The most basic things that you should be learning in Excel in order to get your first job as data analyst are, you should know how to filter data, how to find duplicate data, how to remove duplicate data. You should know how to use formulas and functions like aggregate functions and several types of different functions. You should know how to perform VLOOKUP. You should know how to do pivot table, transpose of data, etc. I think this is good enough, but if you want to still learn further on Excel, then you can also learn about VBA macros. You can also learn about how you can do some plots and charts, etc. So it's going to be useful, but I think the most basic things that I just mentioned should be good enough to help you to get your first job as data analyst. Okay, so we have seen the two skills that you need, that is a BI tool and Excel. What about the third skill? The third skill that you need to get your very first job as data analyst is SQL. Now, SQL is so widely used in so many different fields, especially for a data analyst, because a lot of times you may need to extract data from a database. You may need to query some data from the database to analyze the data, to understand the data or clean the data, etc. So knowing SQL can really help you to really get your first job as data analyst. Now, when it comes to SQL, there are a lot of things that you can learn, but in order to get your very first data analyst job, you don't need to be an expert in SQL. You don't need to know to write complex SQL queries or do some performance tuning. The most basic things that you need to know in order to be able to get your first data analyst job and then use SQL in your projects are, you should know the basic concepts, of course. You should know how to write simple SQL queries to intermediate level of SQL queries. You should know how to use aggregate functions and then how to use group by clause, having clause. You should know all the different types of joins and how the results may differ when you use one or the other joins. You should know how to use subqueries. You should know how to use CTE table. That is basically how to write a SQL query using the with clause. You should also know window functions, maybe not all the window functions, but at least some of the most common window functions like rank, dense rank, row number, etc. And finally, it's also better that if you are aware of stored procedures and also some inbuilt functions like how do you do date formatting, how do you fetch a substring from a text, etc. If you know all of this, then I think you should be in pretty good state to get your first data analyst job where SQL is a requirement. Now, if you want to learn SQL and you're planning to do a course on SQL, then last week I just posted a video where I recommended one of the best SQL courses that you can find online, and it's basically a platform called Learn SQL. It's a platform where you would find several different SQL courses. Now it's not free, but it's not too expensive as well, and currently there is a very good offer also going on. So I'll leave the link to that platform in the description below. So if you want to check out that course, you can check that out. And also I'll leave the link to my last week's video where I have explained the reason why I think that this platform is actually pretty good for learning SQL. So you can check that video out as well. Okay, now coming to the last skill that you need to become a data analyst, or basically to get your first job as data analyst, is either Python or R. Now these are the two programming languages that I would recommend that you learn for data analysis. Now Python is more popular because it's more widely used, but if you want to learn R, it's also fine. It's up to you what you want to learn. But I think any one of these two programming languages should be good enough. You don't need to know both. Any one is fine. Now, when it comes to Python, the concept that you need to be aware of is all the basic and fundamental Python concepts. You should also be aware of data structures like list, dictionaries, tuples, etc. You should also be aware of the object-oriented programming concepts like classes, objects, methods, inheritance, etc. And finally, you should also be aware of some of the most popular libraries that are available in Python for data analysis like Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, and Seaborn. Now, if you want to learn Python, then I would highly recommend that you learn Python by reading some books. And there are several books that are available for Python. But one of the best books for learning Python for absolute beginners is Automate the Boring Stuff with Python. Now, this was the book that I used to learn Python. And I highly recommend that because it is so fantastic and all the concepts are so well explained and it's so easy to learn. Now, I have a free PDF version of this book and I'm going to place this free PDF version in my blog. In fact, everything that I mentioned in this video, all the different skills and all the things that you need to learn in specific skill, I'm going to mention it in my blog. So if you are not able to catch it in this video, you can find everything in my blog. Now in that blog, you'll also find this free PDF book. You can just download this book for free. Now I have the first edition of this book. Now recently, I think few years back, the second edition also came, but there's not much major difference between the first edition and the second edition. I think there are 2 or 3 chapters that are added additionally in the second edition, but I think if you're just getting started learning with Python, the first edition of this book is actually going to be pretty good, because that is a book that I used to learn, and I'm going to place it for free for anyone who is interested in learning Python. You can just download it from my blog. Now, one thing you need to remember is that you don't need to have all the 4 skills that I mentioned here in order to get your first data analyst job. In fact, you can just know any one of these skills. In fact, if you were having the option of learning just one of these skills, then I would highly recommend that you learn the BI tool, either Tableau or Power BI, because I know a few people and I have seen so many different job descriptions where the primary requirement for a data analyst is knowing a BI tool, either Tableau or Power BI. So if you had to learn just one skill, then just focus on this BI tool, either Tableau or Power BI. But if you have the time, definitely spend at least a week on Excel, and I think in 1 week you can actually become pretty good with Excel. And then if you have the time, go for SQL. SQL is very important, but it's not mandatory. A lot of jobs will just tell you knowing SQL is like preferable but not mandatory. But knowing SQL will open many more doors because a lot of jobs will ask you for SQL as well. So SQL would be the third preference. And then finally, if you have finished all these 3 skills, only then if you have the time, learn any one programming language, that is R or Python. Okay, so you don't need to know all the 4, but if you know all the 4, then you give yourself the best chance to get that first job. But if you had to choose any one, then I would definitely choose the BI tool. Okay, so now we know what are the skills that we need to learn in order to get the first data analyst job. But what next? Now, just knowing all of these skills and doing the certifications and then mentioning all of the skills and certifications in our resume is actually not going to convince the recruiter that we are actually good enough to be able to work on a data analytics project. Now we need to do something extra to convince the recruiters, and that extra is basically building projects. Because knowing skills and then using those skills to build projects and solve problems are completely 2 different things, and that is what we need to do by building some portfolio projects. Now, when I say portfolio project, I just mean that you need to build some projects and then you need to showcase those projects in your portfolio. I'm going to talk about portfolio website in a short while, but let's first cover what are the projects that you need to build. Now, in this video, I'm not going to tell you the exact project that you can build to get your data analyst job, but I'm going to talk about the type of projects that you need to do. Now, if you want me to make a separate video where I mention the list of projects that you can do to get your data analyst job, then leave a comment below so I can make a separate video about that. Now let's see what are the type of projects that you need to build to convince the recruiter that you can actually become a good data analyst in their organization. Now, to answer this question, it's actually pretty simple. You just need to focus on what a data analyst does. Now, in the beginning of the video, I just told you that a data analyst is expected to extract the data, do some data cleaning and data analysis, and then finally draw some meaningful insights from this data. So basically, you need to build some projects where you're going to perform all of these activities. So the very first type of project that you should be building is basically a web scraping project. Now, web scraping is basically the process of scraping some data from the web. Now, in my YouTube channel, you would find 2 videos. There's a video where I have done web scraping using Python, where I have scrapped the IMDb website. And then there is another video where I have scrapped the YouTube data using the YouTube API. You can refer to both of these videos to understand what web scraping is. But basically, you need to know how to extract data. Now, several times the data might be in the web, so you may need to go to some website and extract the data. And several other times the data might be in some databases, some files, etc. Now, just making a video on web scraping will just convince the recruiter that you are aware of web scraping, and if we had a requirement in the organization to scrape some data, you will be able to do that. Now, other than referring to my videos, you can also scrape some other websites. Like I would say most popular would be to scrape some job portals like LinkedIn or maybe Monster, or just to see what are the job descriptions of different types of data analyst jobs posted by different companies. Or you can scrape some e-commerce websites like Amazon just to compare the prices of different products, check their description, etc. And you can scrape several other websites as well. So once you have built a web scraping project, the next project that you need to build is the exploratory data analysis project. Basically, this project should include how you are going to do data cleaning and then how you are going to do data analysis. Now, I'm I'm not going to tell you what sort of projects that you can build. Basically, your project should include the EDA process. EDA is basically, or exploratory data analysis, is basically the process of analyzing data and then understanding the patterns and the characteristics of the data. So basically, you just need to analyze data, clean the data, and completely understand what sort of data it is and what sort of results you can achieve from that data and what sort of problems you can solve from that data. So you need to build some projects where you use EDA. Now I'm going to leave a link to a blog that I just found, and in this blog you would find some projects that you can build for exploratory data analysis. You can refer to that blog and you can perhaps use the data sets that they have given in that blog, and you can try to build some EDA projects using that. Now, one thing you need to remember is, in order to do this EDA project, mainly you would use Python, R, or SQL, and you may also need to do some simple visualization, which you can do using R or Python. So these are the two types of project that you first need to do: the web scraping and the exploratory data analysis. Once you have done these two, the final type of project that you should definitely build to get your data analyst job is going to be a project where you are going to do some data visualization. Now, you need to basically perform data visualization using any of the BI tools, either Tableau or Power BI. And in Tableau and Power BI, you can basically connect to some source. The source might be some file or some database, or it can also be some cloud data warehouse, etc. So you need to connect to those data source and then extract the data and then do some build some beautiful dashboards and visualization. So having this kind of project is actually going to be pretty useful, and it's going to give an indication to the recruiter that you are able to use Tableau or Power BI. You know how to extract data, how to connect Tableau to a different data source, and then draw some meaningful insights from that. So I think if you can build these three types of projects, you should actually be in pretty good state to work as a data analyst in any organization. Now, once you have this project, what next? You cannot just build these projects and keep it in your machine, right? You need to showcase it to the world. And how you can do that is, the first thing is you need to have a GitHub account. So you can post any of your projects in GitHub. Now, GitHub is basically a website where anyone can post projects, and you can share your GitHub profile with anyone in the world. Now, I have made a separate video where I have explained GitHub and Git in detail. So I'm going to leave the link to those videos somewhere here, or you can find the link in the description. So if you want to know what GitHub is, definitely check that video out. So once you have built this project, you should definitely post these projects on GitHub. That is the very first step, but that's not the only step. Now you can just keep it in GitHub and then share the GitHub profile in your LinkedIn, and that is fine, but you can just go one step further and make it even better. And how you can do that is just by having a portfolio website. Now, what exactly is a portfolio website? A portfolio website, you can just treat it like a professional website. It's like a professional website of you. So you can basically have all the different projects that you have done on your portfolio website. You can also mention your resume. You can also mention a cover letter. You can also mention any other professional information that you would like your recruiter to know about you. So by having a portfolio website, you just make it so much easier for anyone, any recruiter or anyone who may be interested in your work, to just look at all your work in one single website. Now, one thing to remember is you don't need to spend money to build a portfolio website. You can build a portfolio website for free. And I think there are several different platforms where you can build free portfolio websites. GitHub.io is one, and you can also build some portfolio website using Wix. And there are so many different platforms as well. Now, if you want me to make a separate video where I explain you how to build a free portfolio website, then leave a comment below so I can make a video on that. Okay, so this is all about portfolio projects. You need to build projects. These three type of projects especially, you can build several other projects as well. And you need to have a GitHub account where your projects are posted. You need to have a portfolio website just to make it more neater and cleaner and easier and more nicer for the recruiter to have a look at your work. Okay, so now let's talk about the third section in this video, that is some courses that you can do to get your first data analyst job. Now, I have two courses that I would recommend. Now, the first course that I recommend is the Google Data Analytics Professional Certificate. Now, this is a course or a certificate that is provided by Google in Coursera. So you need to go to Coursera to find this course. I'll leave the link to this course in the description below. Now, the things that you're going to learn in this course are, you're going to learn SQL, you're going to learn Google Sheets, Tableau, and R. Now, this course is not using Python. Python, and that was one of the remarks that this course actually had. But I think R is actually pretty good for data analysis, and if Google has chosen R over Python for data analysis, definitely they should know something that many of us may not be aware of. So these are the things that you would learn. Now in this course, you would not just find the skills that I just mentioned, but there are a lot of other information that Google provides which can really help you to become a data analyst. Finally, at the end of this course, you would also find some capstone project which can actually be a pretty good project to be included in your portfolio website. So definitely consider looking at this project. This would basically be my first preference for a data analyst project. Now let's say if you do not want to learn R, you only want to learn Python. Okay, in that case there is another course, and that course is IBM Data Analyst Professional Certificate. Now this course is offered by IBM on Coursera. So again, this course is also on Coursera, and I leave the link to this course in the description below. Now in this course, the skills that you're going to be learning are Excel, Python, SQL, and Cognos. Now Cognos is a BI tool, so it's not going to teach you Tableau or Power BI, but Cognos is an in-house IBM BI tool, so they're going to teach that. So that is one thing that you need to consider. And at the end of this project, you will also find some capstone project, which can be actually a pretty good project to be included in your portfolio. So these are the two courses that I would recommend if you really want to spend some money and do a course which kind of becomes a shortcut for learning all these skills at once and also getting some good project experience. Definitely consider doing any one of these two courses. Okay, so now let's go to the last section of this video, and that is how you can make yourself more visible to recruiters. And the simple answer for that is just by being more active on job portals. Now, just by learning all the skills, doing all the projects, having portfolio websites, and doing these courses is not good enough to tell the recruiter that, hey, you have done all of this and you're ready to get a job. You need to make yourself more visible, and the best way of doing that is by being active on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn can also be treated as a social media, or you can treat it like a job portal. But I would say that if you are looking for a data analyst job, or for that matter any other job, you need to be active on LinkedIn. You need to build connections. Basically try to add connections who are hiring for a data analyst role. Try to follow companies where you're interested in working. Try to check out for jobs that has been posted about data analyst in the companies that you want to work for, and just be active. Just try to post some articles about data analysis, data analytics, etc. And also the projects that you will be building, try to post these projects on LinkedIn, because you never know which recruiter or which potential employer might look at this project and might actually like this project and may offer you a job. So try to be active on LinkedIn, and that's definitely the number one thing that you need to do. So once you have a LinkedIn profile, the next thing is to actively update your profiles on the most popular job portals in your country. Now let's say if you are in India, then I think the most popular job portals are Naukri and Monster. So make sure that you update your profile at least once in a week, once or twice a week, but at least once in a week. Make sure that the resumes are updated, you are updating your profile, etc. And let's say if you are in Malaysia, then I think the most popular job portals here are JobStreet and Monster. So make sure that you have updated your profile at least once a week. And let's say if you're in US, then there is, I think, Glassdoor and Indeed are the most popular job portals. So make sure to update your profile. So depending on which country you are, different countries may have different popular job portals. So make sure you're updating your profile at least once a week on those job portals. So I think we have come to the end of this video, and these are the 4 sections that I covered, and these are all the things that I think if you follow and if you do all of this, you will actually be in pretty good state to find your first data analyst job. Now do leave a comment below with your feedback on what you thought, and if you liked this video, and if you felt that there are any other skills that I missed, or if you think that all of these skills are actually not required and you have some other opinion of how to get your first data analyst job. I'd really be interested in knowing your feedback. Thank you, and see you soon in the next one. Bye.